What if I told you that a book written almost 90 years ago could completely change the way you connect with people, advance your career, and build the life you've always wanted? What if the secret to success in business, in relationships, in life wasn't about being smarter, richer, or more talented, but simply about how you make other people feel? That's exactly what Dale Carnegie discovered when he wrote How to Win Friends and Influence People in 1936. And here's the shocking truth. In a world of social media, AI, and constant distraction, the lessons in this book are more relevant today than they've ever been. Over 30 million copies sold, used by presidents, CEOs, and everyday people to transform their lives. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through every single powerful principle from this legendary book. So whether you're trying to build better friendships, close more deals, lead a team, or simply become someone people genuinely love being around, this video is for you. Stay until the end, because the final section might be the most powerful of all. Let's dive in. Part 1. Fundamental Techniques in Handling People. Principle 1. Don't criticize, condemn, or complain. Let's start with something that feels completely counterintuitive. You see someone making a mistake. You know better. You want to correct them. You want to point out what they did wrong. It feels logical, even helpful. But here's what Carnegie discovered after years of studying human behavior. Criticism never works. Not really. Not in the long run. When you criticize someone, they don't think, "Oh, you're right, I was wrong, let me change." What they actually think is, "Who do you think you are? I'm going to defend myself." The walls go up, the pride kicks in, and suddenly you haven't fixed anything, you've made it worse. Carnegie gives us the example of Al Capone, yes, the famous gangster. Capone never thought of himself as a criminal. He saw himself as a public benefactor who was simply misunderstood. Even the most dangerous people on earth justify their own actions. So instead of criticizing, Carnegie says, try to understand. Ask yourself, why does this person behave this way? What pressures are they under? What do they believe about themselves? Understanding doesn't mean excusing. It means you're smart enough to realize that attacking someone's ego is the least effective way to change their behavior. Here's the rule. Before you criticize anyone, ask yourself, will this actually help, or will it just make me feel better for a moment while pushing this person further away? Principle 2. Give honest and sincere appreciation. Now here's the flip side. If criticism is the worst thing you can do, what's the best thing? Appreciation. Genuine, sincere, specific appreciation. Carnegie tells us that the deepest craving of human nature is the desire to feel important. Every single person you meet, your boss, your spouse, the cashier at the grocery store, is walking around wanting to feel valued, seen, and appreciated. And most of us are terrible at giving this to people. But wait, there's a crucial distinction Carnegie makes here. He says appreciation, not flattery. Flattery is cheap. Flattery is saying, "You're amazing," with no substance behind it. People can smell flattery a mile away, and it actually backfires. It makes you seem manipulative. Genuine appreciation is specific. It's real. It's, "I noticed how you handled that difficult client today with so much patience. That was impressive." It's, "The way you explained that concept helped me understand it for the first time." Carnegie quotes psychologist William James, "The deepest principle in human nature is the craving to be appreciated." This isn't a weakness, it's just how humans are wired. So here's your challenge starting today. Find one person in your life to genuinely appreciate. Be specific, be sincere. Watch what happens to that relationship. Principle 3. Arouse in the other person an eager want. This is probably the most powerful business and persuasion principle in the entire book. Carnegie says, stop thinking about what you want, start thinking about what they want, and then show them how what you want aligns with what they want. He uses this perfect fishing analogy. When you go fishing, you don't put your favorite food on the hook, you put what the fish likes. Nobody puts a chocolate bar on a fishing hook because they like chocolate. Sounds obvious, right? But think about how most people try to influence others. You should do this because it would help me. I need you to do this because of my deadline. This is important to me. Me, me, me. Nobody cares about what you want. They care about what they want. So the master skill is learning to see every situation from the other person's point of view and translating your request into their language of desire. For example, instead of telling your child, "Go to bed because I said so," you might say, "The more you sleep, the stronger and faster you'll grow. You want to beat your friends at sports, right?" Same goal, completely different framing. One creates resistance, one creates motivation. This principle alone can transform your career.
Part 2. 6 ways to make people like you. Principle 1. Become genuinely interested in other people. Let me ask you something. Who is your favorite person to talk to? The person who talks about themselves constantly, or the person who seems genuinely curious about you? Obviously, the second one, every time. Carnegie says you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. Read that again. Let it sink in. Most people walk into a room thinking about how to impress others. The person who wins is the one who walks in thinking about who they can learn from. Carnegie gives the example of Teddy Roosevelt, who was beloved by his staff. Why? Because before meeting with anyone, Roosevelt would study what that person was interested in so he could talk to them about it. He made everyone feel like the most important person in the room. And here's the beautiful thing. It doesn't have to be fake. The more you practice being genuinely curious about people, the more you actually become genuinely curious. Because people are fascinating when you take the time to discover their story. So next time you meet someone, ask yourself, what is remarkable about this person? What can I learn from them? What have they been through that I haven't? Principle 2, smile. This one sounds almost too simple. Smile? Really? That's the advice? But Carnegie dedicates an entire chapter to it for a reason. A genuine smile communicates, "I'm happy to see you. You matter to me. Being here with you is a good thing." Without a single word, you create warmth and connection. Carnegie quotes a Chinese proverb, "A man without a smiling face must not open a shop." But here's the key word, genuine. Carnegie is clear that a fake smile won't work. People can instantly tell the difference between a real smile and a plastic one. So how do you smile genuinely? You have to feel it first. Think about something you love, a memory, a person, something that excites you. Let that feeling come up first and then smile. That's a real smile. Studies in psychology back this up completely. People who smile are perceived as more competent, more trustworthy, and more likable. Your face is sending a signal about whether you're safe, whether you're friendly, whether you're someone worth knowing. It costs you nothing. It can change everything. Principle 3. Remember that a person's name is the sweetest, most important sound in any language. Here's a tiny detail that most people completely ignore, and it's costing them relationships and opportunities. People's names. Carnegie says that to any person, the sound of their own name is the sweetest, most important sound in any language. It's tied to their entire identity, their sense of self, their existence. When you forget someone's name, or worse, when you never bothered to learn it, you're sending a signal, "You're not important enough for me to remember." But when you remember someone's name and use it naturally in conversation, you make them feel seen, important, valued. Napoleon III, Emperor of France, was famous for remembering the names of every person he met. His method was simple. He'd ask people to repeat their name, then use it in conversation, then write it down later. So starting today, when you meet someone, focus on their name, repeat it in your head, use it once in the conversation, and if you can, write it down with something memorable about them afterward. This simple habit will make you magnetic to everyone you meet. Principle 4. Be a good listener. Encourage others to talk about themselves. Here's something most people don't understand about conversations. The person who talks the most is rarely the most liked. The person who listens the most is. Carnegie says, to be interesting, be interested. Think about it. When was the last time you felt truly heard? When someone gave you their full attention, put away their phone, made eye contact, and actually listened without waiting for their turn to speak? How did that make you feel? Probably amazing. Probably like you wanted to keep talking to that person forever. Carnegie gives the story of a botanist he once met at a dinner party. Carnegie barely said a word all night. He just asked question after question and listened with genuine fascination. At the end of the night, the botanist told the host that Carnegie was one of the most stimulating conversationalists he'd ever met. Carnegie had barely spoken. The lesson? Most people are so hungry to be heard that when you actually listen to them, you become extraordinary in their eyes. So here's the challenge. In your next conversation, ask more questions than you answer. Listen more than you speak. Watch how the relationship transforms. Principle 5. Talk in terms of the other person's interests. Before meeting with anyone, whether it's a client, a boss, a friend, a date, do your homework. What are they passionate about? What do they care deeply about? What gets them excited? And then talk about that. Carnegie tells the story of Teddy Roosevelt's conversations. He would spend hours the night before any meeting reading up on the other person's interests so he could speak their language. It made everyone feel like they'd found a kindred spirit. This isn't manipulation. This is emotional intelligence. This is the understanding that every person lives inside their own universe of interests, passions, and concerns, and the fastest way to connect with them is to enter that universe. When you talk about what the other person cares about, you're not just being polite. You're telling them, I see you. I value what you value. You matter to me. That's
Principle 6. Make the other person feel important, and do it sincerely. This is the golden thread that runs through everything Carnegie teaches. Every single person you will ever meet wants to feel important. Not just liked, important, like their existence matters, like they've contributed something, like they're seen. Carnegie quotes the philosopher John Dewey, who said, "The deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important." And here's how you give this to people. Notice them, acknowledge their contributions, use phrases like, "Your opinion on this really matters to me," or "You know more about this than anyone I know," or simply, "I'm really glad you're here." The key word again is sincerely. You must actually mean it. Find the truth in it. There is always something genuinely admirable in every person if you look hard enough. When you master this, when you become the person who makes everyone they meet feel important, you become someone people want in their life, always. Part 3. How to win people to your way of thinking. Principle 1. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. Here's a hard truth that Carnegie drops on us. You cannot win an argument. Even if you completely destroy the other person's position with logic and facts, even if you leave them speechless, you still lose because you've wounded their pride. You've made them feel stupid, and now they resent you. Carnegie says, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. Think about the last argument you had. Did either side actually change their mind? Or did both sides just dig in deeper, say things they regret, and walk away feeling worse about each other? The goal in any disagreement isn't to win, it's to solve a problem or preserve a relationship. And you can almost never do both while in fight mode. So what do you do instead? You listen. You find the points where you agree. You show that you've genuinely considered their perspective. And then you reframe the conversation around shared goals. Ask yourself before any confrontation, what do I actually want from this? Do I want to be right, or do I want a good outcome? Those are often two very different things. Principle 2. Show respect for the other person's opinions. Never say, "You're wrong." You're wrong. 2 words, huge damage. The moment you tell someone they're wrong, you've just made it personal. You've attacked their judgment, their intelligence, their worldview. Now they're not thinking about the topic anymore. They're thinking about defending themselves against you. Carnegie advises, if you discover someone is wrong, don't say it directly. Instead, try phrases like, I may be wrong about this, let me think through it again. Or, I hadn't considered that perspective before. This disarms people. It signals that you're not here to attack, you're here to think together. And paradoxically, you become more persuasive when you're less aggressive about being right. Remember, the goal isn't to score points. The goal is to change someone's mind or reach a solution. And the only way to do that is to keep their defensive walls down, not up. Principle 3. If you're wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Most people hate being wrong. They'll dance around it, qualify it, minimize it, or blame someone else. Carnegie says, when you're wrong, be the first to say it. Say it clearly, say it honestly. Say it before the other person can say it for you. When you do this, something magical happens. The other person suddenly doesn't want to pile on. The fight disappears. They become generous, understanding, forgiving. Carnegie gives his own story of being caught walking his dog in a park without a license. When the officer approached him, Carnegie immediately said, "Officer, I'm completely in the wrong. There are no excuses. You warned me before and I ignored it." The officer was so disarmed by the admission that he let Carnegie off with just a warning. People respect someone who can admit when they're wrong. It takes confidence, real confidence, to do that, and it instantly builds credibility and trust.
Principle 4. Begin in a friendly way. No matter how difficult the conversation you're about to have, no matter how tense the situation, always begin with warmth. Carnegie quotes a famous saying, "A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall." If you come in angry, defensive, or accusatory, you've already lost. The other person's defenses are up. They're in fight mode. Nothing productive will happen. But if you come in warm, calm, and friendly, if you acknowledge the relationship before you address the problem, you create the conditions where real conversation is possible. This applies to emails, meetings, negotiations, difficult family conversations. Start kind, start human, start with genuine connection, then address the issue. Principle 5. Get the other person saying yes, yes immediately. This is a brilliant psychological technique that Carnegie shares, and it's backed by decades of research in persuasion science. When people say no, their entire physiology shifts. Cortisol rises, the body prepares for confrontation, they become more resistant to everything that follows. But when people say yes, even to small, uncontroversial things, their body relaxes. They become more open, more flexible, more agreeable. So Carnegie's technique, before you get to the main point, ask questions you know the other person will agree with. Build momentum, get them nodding. We both want what's best for the team, right? And we both want to finish this project on time. Great, so let's talk about how we can make that happen. You're not manipulating, you're building a foundation of agreement before introducing the point of disagreement. It works every single time. Principle 6. Let the other person do a great deal of the talking. Want to convince someone of your idea? Then stop talking about it so much. Carnegie says, let them talk, ask questions, draw out their thoughts. And here's the brilliant part. Often, when you let people talk through a problem, they convince themselves of the solution you already had in mind. People trust their own thinking. If they arrive at a conclusion themselves, even if you guided them there, they own it completely. They'll fight for it. They'll implement it with energy and commitment. But if you tell them what to think, they resist, even if it's a great idea, even if it's obviously correct, because it's your idea, not theirs. So become a master of questions. Lead people to the answer through curiosity. Let them discover it, and watch how enthusiastically they act on it. Principle 7. Let the other person feel that the idea is his or hers.
This builds directly on the last principle. Carnegie goes further. If you want something done, plant the seed of the idea and let the other person grow it into their own. Forget getting credit. Forget being recognized for the idea. Ask yourself, do I want to be right or do I want results? Carnegie gives the example of working with a manager who never implemented suggestions from subordinates directly. But if you framed an idea as a question and let the manager discover it themselves, they'd implement it immediately and champion it with full force. Leaders and influencers who master this principle can move mountains because they've learned to. Principle 8. Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view. This is one of the most profound and difficult skills in Carnegie's entire book, and the most transformative. Empathy. Not sympathy, empathy. Not feeling sorry for someone, but actually entering their experience. Asking, if I were them with their background, their fears, their history, their pressures, how would I see this situation? Carnegie says success in dealing with people depends on a sympathetic grasp of the other person's point of view. This doesn't mean you have to agree with them. It means you understand why they think what they think. And that understanding changes everything. It changes your tone, your language, your approach. And the other person can feel that you understand them, which makes them infinitely more open to your perspective. Principle 9. Be sympathetic with the other person's ideas and desires. Carnegie suggests a magic phrase that can instantly disarm anger and create connection. I don't blame you one iota for feeling as you do. If I were you, I would undoubtedly feel just as you do. Read those words carefully. You're not agreeing that they're right. You're acknowledging that their feelings make sense given how they see things. You're validating the human experience, not the specific position. This phrase creates immediate relief. The other person stops defending because you've stopped attacking. And now, only now, real conversation becomes possible. Principle 10. Appeal to the nobler motives. Here's a fascinating insight about human psychology that Carnegie offers. People have two reasons for everything they do: the real reason and the noble reason they tell themselves and others. For example, someone might not pay a bill because they're broke, but they'll tell themselves and you that it's because they didn't receive adequate service. Carnegie's advice: appeal to the noble motive. Give people the opportunity to act honorably. Assume the best about their intentions, even when you have doubts. When you say to someone, I know you're the kind of person who believes in keeping their word, you're not just flattering them, you're giving them an identity to live up to. People will rise to meet the expectations you set for them. Principle 11. Dramatize your ideas. In a world drowning in information, the ideas that stick are the ones that are shown, not just told. Carnegie talks about how a salesperson who had been trying to get a grocery buyer's attention for years finally succeeded, not with a longer pitch, but by dramatically dumping a pile of coins on the desk to illustrate how much money the buyer was losing every day by not carrying his product. Stories, demonstrations, visuals, metaphors, emotion. If you want your ideas to land, if you want people to actually act on what you're saying, you have to make it real to them. Connect it to
Principle 12. Throw down a challenge. Carnegie ends this section with one of the most motivating forces in human nature: competition. Specifically, the desire to win. Not competition for money or recognition, but for the pure satisfaction of excelling, of proving you can do it. Carnegie says, the way to get things done is to stimulate competition. I do not mean in a sordid, money-getting way, but in the desire to excel. Challenge people, dare them, invite them to prove what they're capable of. Most people are walking around with enormous untapped potential, and all they need is someone to believe in them enough to throw down the gauntlet. Part 4.
Be a leader. How to change people without offending them. Principle 1. Begin with praise and honest appreciation. When you need to correct someone, when you need to deliver difficult feedback, how you start matters more than anything else. Carnegie says, always begin with genuine praise. Find something real and good about the person's work or effort before you address what needs to change. This isn't sugarcoating. This is building the relational foundation that allows the correction to land without destroying the person. Carnegie uses the analogy of a dentist who begins with Novocaine. The drilling still happens, but the pain is minimized. The patient can handle it, and they'll come back. Principle 2. Call attention to people's mistakes indirectly. One word that Carnegie says can completely change the dynamic of a correction. Replace but with and. Your presentation was great, but you need to improve your data. Instantly, that but erases everything positive. The person only hears the criticism. Your presentation was great, and I think with sharper data, it could be even more powerful. Same information, completely different emotional experience. The indirect approach preserves the person's dignity. It suggests improvement without implying failure, and it keeps the relationship intact. Principle 3. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing someone else. Before pointing out someone else's flaws, Carnegie advises, humble yourself first. Talk about your own mistakes, your own failures, your own journey to get better. Why does this work? Because it removes the hierarchy. It says, I'm not above you. I've been where you are. I'm not criticizing you from a throne. I'm talking to you as a fellow human being. This disarms defensiveness completely, and it makes the other person genuinely open to hearing your feedback. Principle 6. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders. Do this. Instant resistance. What do you think about approaching this situation this way? Instant engagement. Carnegie says great leaders ask more than they tell. Questions preserve dignity. Questions invite participation. Questions make people feel like partners, not subordinates. And here's the bonus. When someone figures out the answer themselves in response to a good question, they become far more committed to implementing it. Principle 5. Let the other person save face. Carnegie dedicates significant attention to this principle because it's one of the most commonly violated and the most damaging when violated. When people are wrong, or when they need to change direction, or when they've made a mistake, the way you handle it determines whether they can grow from the experience or whether they shut down from humiliation. Always give people a way out. Always let them save face. Even when they're clearly wrong, find a way to acknowledge any grain of truth in their position before redirecting them. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry wrote, I have no right to say or do anything that diminishes a man in his own eyes. What matters is not what I think of him, but what he thinks of himself. Hurting a man in his dignity is a crime. This is leadership, real leadership. Principle 6. Praise the slightest improvement and every improvement. Carnegie talks about the science of positive reinforcement decades before behavioral psychology made it mainstream. When you catch people doing something right and praise them for it, specifically, genuinely, enthusiastically, you reinforce that behavior. They want to do it again. They want more of that feeling. But most managers, parents, and leaders focus almost entirely on what's wrong, and what they get is more fear, more hiding, more mediocrity. The principle, be lavish with genuine, specific praise for every step of improvement. Watch how people blossom when they feel seen and appreciated for their growth. Principle 7, give the other person a fine reputation to live up to. This might be the most counterintuitive leadership principle in the book. Instead of telling someone they need to improve, tell them who they already are. Give them an identity to protect. You've always been one of our most reliable people. I know you can get this back on track. You're not lying. You're not manipulating. You're appealing to the best version of who they want to be. And people will move mountains to protect a good reputation.
Principle 8. Use encouragement. Make the fault seem easy to correct. When you show someone that their mistake is small, correctable, and not a reflection of who they are, they feel capable of fixing it. When you make the mistake feel huge, catastrophic, and character-defining, they feel defeated before they've even started. Carnegie says, make the path to improvement look short. Make it look possible. Give people the gift of believing they can do better, because that belief is often the only thing standing between them and the version of themselves that actually does. Principle 9. Make the other person happy about doing the thing you suggest. The final principle in Carnegie's leadership section is about creating enthusiasm, not just compliance. Anyone can get someone to do something through fear or authority. That's not leadership, that's coercion. Real leadership is making someone want to do the thing you need done. Carnegie says this requires knowing what the other person wants, understanding what they value, framing your request in terms of their interests, and making them feel honored by the opportunity. When you truly master this principle, when you can make someone feel genuinely excited about contributing to something, you've become a leader that people don't just follow, but follow with fire. The conclusion, what all of this really means. So we've covered 4 major sections of Dale Carnegie's masterpiece: fundamental principles for handling people, 6 ways to make people like you, 12 ways to win people to your thinking, and 9 principles for leading people without resentment. But let me pull back the lens for a moment and ask, what is all of this really about? I think Carnegie's deepest message is this. Most of us are trapped in our own perspective. We see the world through our needs, our desires, our fears, our opinions, and we go through life trying to get other people to see things our way, do what we want, agree with what we believe. And we wonder why we're lonely, why we struggle at work, why our relationships feel hard, why people don't respond to us the way we want. Carnegie's answer is radical. Get out of your own head. Step into other people's worlds. See through their eyes. Care about what they care about. Make them the most important person in the room. When you do this, not as a strategy, but as a genuine way of being, something extraordinary happens. People are drawn to you. They trust you. They want to help you. They open doors for you. They become champions for your success. Not because you've manipulated them, but because you've given them something most people never receive, the feeling of being truly seen, heard, and valued. That is Carnegie's gift to us, and it's available to anyone who is willing to practice it. So here's my final challenge to you. Pick one principle from today's video, just one. Practice it deliberately for the next 7 days. Write down what changes. Because the person who masters this book doesn't just win friends and influence people. They build a life full of deep connection, meaningful impact, and lasting legacy. That person can be you. If this summary added value to your life, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with someone who needs it. There's a new book summary every week. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, go out there and make someone feel important.